Let me begin with something very simple, but very often overlooked. Food is not just food. It is chemistry, it is biology, and it is energy. When you put something on your plate, you're not just eating a meal, you're making a decision that directly influences whether your body moves toward life or toward death. That may sound dramatic, but it's true, because every single bite you take enters into a living system. Your body, that is extraordinarily sensitive to balance, to harmony, and to timing. And when that balance is disrupted, the consequences are not immediate fireworks, but slow decay. And sometimes when the mistake is serious enough, the consequences are catastrophic and sudden. Take papaya, for example. For centuries, it has been regarded as a healing fruit, soft on the stomach, packed with enzymes, rich in vitamins, and easy to digest. And in many cases, that's correct. But here's the trap. People assume that because something is good in one context, it is always good in every context. That's a dangerous assumption. It's like saying a medicine that heals in one dose will heal even more in a larger dose. It doesn't work like that. What heals in one situation can harm in another. And papaya, when mixed with the wrong foods, becomes a silent weapon against your own biology. Why? Because the human body is not a garbage disposal where you can throw in anything and expect it to handle the chaos. It's a finely tuned system, a symphony of enzymes, acids, hormones, and organs working together with precision. When you mix the wrong foods, say papaya with dairy, you're forcing your body to do two opposite tasks at once. The enzymes in papaya break down proteins quickly, while dairy requires a completely different digestive process. These two processes collide in your stomach, creating fermentation, gas, and acid, and what begins as discomfort can spiral into chronic inflammation, nutrient malabsorption, and eventually disease. And here's the frightening part: most people never connect the dots. They don't think the bloating, the heartburn, or the exhaustion has anything to do with food combinations. They blame age, they blame genetics, they blame stress. But the truth is far more practical and far more within their control. That 71-year-old man who died didn't die because he was old. He died because he made the mistake of trusting a false assumption that papaya is always safe, no matter how you eat it. He mixed it with what should never have been mixed, and his body, already more fragile from age, could not withstand the toxic chain reaction that followed. Now, this should make you pause, because how many times have you done the same thing? How many times have you combined fruits with milk or eaten heavy meals with incompatible sides without ever thinking twice? And maybe you were lucky. Maybe your body tolerated it. But what about the long-term cost? What about the silent inflammation building in your gut day after day, meal after meal? That is how disease begins. Not with one catastrophic event, but with 1,000 small insults to your biology that accumulate until something finally breaks. And I want you to understand something here. This is not about fear. It's about responsibility. You have the ability to control what goes into your body. You are not powerless. You don't have to accept the narrative that health decline is inevitable, that aging automatically means weakness, or that disease is a matter of fate. That's a lie. Health is built or destroyed by choices repeated consistently over time. The tragedy is not that we lack knowledge, but that we ignore it. The tragedy is not that we are doomed, but that we behave as though we are. Think of it this way: your body is like a delicate instrument. If you treat it carelessly, bang it around, or play the wrong notes together, the sound it produces will be chaotic, harsh, even destructive. But if you learn the principles of harmony, if you respect its design, it can produce strength, vitality, and longevity far beyond what most people imagine possible. But harmony requires discipline. It requires saying no to what seems easy or convenient, and yes to what is wise and deliberate. This is why the story of that man should not just shock you, it should awaken you. Because it shows how close we all live to the edge without realizing it. We assume health is guaranteed. We assume the body will always adapt. But it doesn't. It adapts until it can't. And then sometimes suddenly it fails. So I challenge you right now to rethink your relationship with food. Don't just ask, is this healthy? Ask, Is this compatible with what else I am eating? Don't just trust tradition or habit. Question it, learn it, master it, because every meal is an opportunity to heal or an opportunity to harm. And in that choice lies the difference between a life cut short at 71 or a life extended with vitality into your 90s and beyond. The choice ultimately is yours. And what you decide at the table determines not only how long you live, but how well you live. Remember this, your body will not forgive ignorance forever. Respect it now or regret it later. When we think about health, most of us reduce it to a kind of checklist: eat fruits, eat vegetables, avoid processed foods. And while that sounds reasonable, it's an oversimplification. Life is rarely that simple. Biology is never that simple. What actually determines your health is not just what you consume, but how those things interact with one another once they're inside your body. And this is where people fail, not because they are careless, but because they operate under a false assumption that the body can endlessly tolerate whatever combinations we throw into it. But here's the uncomfortable truth: the human body is not an infinite reservoir of resilience. It is adaptive, yes, but adaptation has limits. Think of it like bending a branch. You can bend it once, twice, maybe 100 times, and it will flex, it will yield. But eventually, if the bending continues, if the stress is unrelenting, the branch will snap. That's what happens in your body when you repeatedly subject it to incompatible food combinations. Each time your body compensates, it struggles, it inflames, it uses extra energy to fight the imbalance, and eventually one day it doesn't bend anymore, it breaks. Now, papaya itself is not the villain. Let's be clear about that. On its own, it's nourishing, even medicinal, but the danger comes when it collides with the wrong partners. Papaya with lemon, acid upon acid. Papaya with milk, enzymes fighting proteins. Papaya with heavy, oily foods, fermentation, and stagnation in the gut. The result's not just indigestion, it is systemic chaos. The bloodstream receives partially digested molecules it was never designed to handle. The immune system flags them as invaders. Inflammation ignites. And over time, what could have been a harmless meal becomes the spark that lights the fuse of chronic disease. Most people, when faced with this idea, dismiss it. They say, that can't be right. If it were so dangerous, everyone would know. Everyone would be sick. But that's exactly the problem. Everyone is sick, not always in dramatic, immediate ways, but in subtle, creeping patterns: fatigue, joint pain, blood sugar swings, bloating, anxiety, restless sleep. These are the whispers of a body overwhelmed by years of silent abuse. We've normalized dysfunction so thoroughly that we no longer recognize it as dysfunction. And so we fail to see that our habits are not just casual, but lethal. This is not only a biological truth, it is a psychological one. We want simplicity. We want to believe that healthy food is always healthy, regardless of how it's eaten. That's comforting because it reduces responsibility. But life punishes simplification. When you deny complexity, when you refuse to see the subtlety of the systems you live within, you suffer. Ignorance does not protect you from consequence. It merely blinds you to it until it's too late. That 71-year-old man whose story I told you earlier, he did not die because papaya is evil. He died because he trusted simplicity over wisdom. He assumed the body was more forgiving than it actually is. And that assumption cost him his life. His story is not just about food. It's about how we as human beings interact with reality itself. If you ignore the laws of nature, whether biological, psychological, or moral, reality does not bend to your ignorance, it breaks you. So let's step back and see this in a broader sense. Every decision you make, every choice about what you put in your body is not isolated. It's part of a pattern. It either reinforces life or it undermines it. And the same is true beyond food. Every habit, every thought, every compromise with truth, these things accumulate. You can't hide from them. You can't cheat nature. You either align yourself with reality or you pay the price. That's the lesson here. And it's not meant to frighten you. It's meant to wake you up. Because the power is not out of your hands. It's right here, in every meal, every day. The same principles that destroy you can also save you if you respect them. When you choose correctly, when you learn what foods to combine and what foods to separate, your body doesn't just avoid disease, it thrives. Your digestion clears, your energy rises, your joints feel lighter, your mind sharper. You begin to see what health actually feels like, not the dimmed, exhausted version of life most people accept. And that's the tragedy, isn't it? Most people never even know what it feels like to be fully alive. They confuse survival with vitality. But you don't have to. You can take responsibility now. You can become conscious of the interactions in your body and in your life. And in doing so, you can build a foundation of health that carries you not just into old age, but into meaningful old age, an age where you are not just alive, but capable, strong, and aware. So let me leave you with this. The body keeps score. It remembers every careless meal, every blind assumption, every reckless combination. But it also remembers every wise choice, every disciplined decision, every act of respect. Which memory do you want it to hold? Which pattern do you want it to strengthen? Because the answer to that question will not just determine how long you live, it will determine the quality of your life itself. Choose carefully. The deeper problem we must confront is not simply that people make dietary mistakes. It's that people ignore the signals their own bodies are giving them. And that, in many ways, is a reflection of a much larger human tendency. We silence what is inconvenient to acknowledge. Your body speaks in whispers long before it screams. The bloating after a heavy meal, the sharp acid in your throat after combining the wrong foods, the sudden fatigue that follows what should have been nourishment. These are signals. They're warnings. They're your body saying, something here is wrong. Pay attention. But most people don't. They dismiss it. They normalize it. They normalize it. They laugh it off as age or stress or just how things are. But here's the reality. Symptoms are not nuisances. They are messengers. And when you kill the messenger, when you drown those signals with pills or ignore them altogether, you silence the very system that is trying to protect you. Imagine if the smoke alarm in your home kept going off, and instead of looking for the fire, you simply removed the batteries because the sound was irritating. That is exactly what we do with our bodies. We silence the alarm while the fire continues to burn. The tragedy of the 71-year-old man was not only that he mixed papaya with the wrong foods, it was that he ignored the warnings that came afterward. His body resisted, his digestion fought back. There were signs, but he, like so many others, believed that discomfort was trivial, that it would pass, that nothing serious was happening beneath the surface. And by the time he realized the truth, it was too late. This is where philosophy meets biology, because the question is not simply, what should I eat? The question is, am I willing to confront reality when it presents itself, even when it's inconvenient, even when it disrupts my habits? That is a psychological question as much as a nutritional one, because taking responsibility for your health requires a humility that most people resist. It demands that you admit you don't know everything, that your traditions and assumptions may be wrong, and that change is necessary. And this is a terrifying truth. Change is difficult. It forces you out of comfort, and it forces you to confront the fact that your life may not be aligned with the principles that sustain it. But what is the alternative? To cling to ignorance, to persist in the same mistakes because they feel familiar. That is not freedom. That is slow suicide. And when we look around at the suffering of so many people in their later years, we see the cost of denial written across their bodies. They become prisoners not of fate, but of their own refusal to listen and adapt. Now consider this, your body is not your enemy. It's your ally. It wants to heal. It wants to recover. It is on your side. But it cannot protect you if you continually sabotage it. Every wrong combination of food, every blind decision forces your body to fight battles it should never have to fight. And though it is resilient, its strength is not infinite. You can't win a war by exhausting your own soldiers. That's what most people do. They wage a war against themselves until the system collapses. So the insight here is not merely about papaya or even about food. It is about a mindset, a willingness to see life as a set of interconnected systems where every choice matters. A single meal may not kill you, just as a single lie may not ruin your life. But repeated over time, patterns accumulate. They define outcomes, they write your story. And if that story ends in suffering, it was written not in a single moment of catastrophe, but in 1,000 small acts of neglect. The question then becomes, will you listen? Will you take seriously the signals your body gives you? Will you respect the complexity of life enough to align with it instead of fighting against it? That is the challenge. Because health, like truth, is not convenient. It requires vigilance, discipline, and the courage to do what is necessary even when it's uncomfortable. And here's the paradox, when you finally take that responsibility, when you stop ignoring the whispers of your body, when you respect its warnings, the rewards are not small. They are profound. Energy returns, sleep deepens. The fog in your mind clears. Your body begins to feel like an ally again, not a burden. And you realize something extraordinary. You were never meant to live in constant decline. You were designed for vitality, for strength, for resilience. But that design requires your cooperation. So the lesson of this story and of this entire discussion is brutally simple. If you ignore reality, reality will punish you. If you align with it, reality will sustain you. The choice is yours. Every meal, every day is a test. And your future health, your strength, your very longevity is the result of whether you choose to ignore or to listen.